Okay, so if you're here right now, it's because of the title, and that is Canon M50 versus Fujifilm X-A7. Now, why we're going through this video, bear in mind, X-A7 released about 5 or 6 months ago, Canon M50 released about 2 years ago, but both still available on the market. It's hard to pick. Rightio. This is 4K 23.98 frames per second. Shutter 1/50th, aperture 3.5, ISO 400, Canon M50, Fuji X-A7. Which one do you think is better for 4K? It's hard to tell. So this is, the Canon's autofocus is shit. Let's just be frank about that. And in a Canon camera, you've got the best autofocus in the world and the worst. And in 4K, it is the worst. And look at the crop. Okay, this is the crop. They're both at 15 millimeters. They're both crop sensor cameras. Holy crap. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So Canon's is a fair bit older, probably a year and a half older than the X-A7. So you've got to consider that. But I love the Canon look, the Canon color. This just looks awesome. Fuji, I don't love the look, but I love that there's no crop. I love the autofocus on 4K anyway. It's better than Canon on 4K. Yes, Canon is shit. Autofocus. Let's try 24 frames per second in just 1080p. And this is with no stabilization on, so the stabilization is turned off, which means there will be less crop, especially on Canon. But there isn't. Look at Canon. It's like a mugshot, and Fujifilm's like a big party house. Ooh, yeah. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the sensor capabilities that they've put in there, or the processor's capabilities. Or have they crippled it so that it doesn't eat into their higher end cameras? I don't know, but that's annoying and that's frustrating. When you take the M50 and the X-A7 and you just put it in 24 frames per second, 1080p, whoa, Canon, killing it. So I took the ISO down on the Canon because I can. So ISO on the Fujifilm in video bottoms out at 400, which I think is a bit dud. So this is, everything's the same, okay? See, look at that. You have a bit more control with lowering your ISO on the Canon. And now, Canon autofocus is way better. What do you think? But I will say, if you don't mind myself, the Canon just looks so much better in colour. But you know what? In the Fuji, so these are both on their kit lenses, 15 to 45mm kit lenses, both at 15mm. Stabilization off. Canon goes from f3.5 to 6.3, and Fujifilm goes from 3.5 to 5.6. And they both go out to 45mm. Let's go out. Ooh, and Canon. That autofocus on Canon is way better. There we go. Oh, Fuji. What are you doing? You tell me in the comments which one looks better. Oh, that autofocus in Canon. Autofocus. Autofocus. Canon, you're winning. Fuji 1 in 4K, Canon 1 in 1080p. Check out the blue sky behind me. It's way better on the Canon. See? Look at that blue sky. There is no blue sky on Fuji World. I really dig Fuji's flippy screen though. The flippy screen on the Fuji is way better. I have to show you that. So this is 23.98 frames per second. The Canon's better. And then we're going to quickly look at the 1080p 60 frames per second. Check this video. 1/120th, f3.5 ISO 500. The Canon looks so much better. The Canon's so much older. I was really hoping that Canon and Fuji were going to be a shitload more on par, but they're not. Canon looks so much better. So this is supposed to be slow motion. So let me do some karate. Just gonna slow that
down. This is slow motion.
Slow-mo with shoot autofocus for Fuji. But the Fuji has so many more frame rates to film in. You've got 23.98, 24, 25, 50, 60. In 4K, you've got 23.98, 25 and 30. And Canon, you got not as many. No, probably about half as many all up. But I'm going to try the 120 frames per second as well. I'll try that outside. I'm going to take some photos too. Try out some photos, right, mate? Let's go test out the slow-mo 120 frames per second. And here is a vlogging video, 1080p, 24 frames per second, handheld image stabilization on. Now, Canon has digital image stabilization and then enhanced digital image stabilization, where Fujifilm just has level 1 digital image stabilization. It doesn't have enhanced. All right, this is stabilization turned off on both Fuji, Canon. Fuji, Canon. Stabilization off. Not running, just walking. So if I was vlogging, this is what you get. G'day folks, Connor here from Vloggy Vlog World. This is what you get for stabilization on the Vloggy Vlog phones, on the Vloggy Vlog cameras. Well, this is Fujifilm, Canon, enhanced IS on the Canon, standard IS on the Fujifilm, no enhanced IS on the Fujifilm, so you get what you get. Both on exactly the same setting, minus the ISO, because the ISO on the Fuji doesn't go under 400 in video mode. You think of the stabilization. For me, the stabilization really isn't that different. If anything, might even be better on the Fuji. Or maybe not. It's hard to tell. Can you hear the rain? Neither of these cameras have weather sealing or water resistance. These are on 24 frames per second, shutter speed 1/50th, aperture f10, ISO 200 on the Canon, ISO 400 on Fuji. Manual settings. The only thing we've got left to test now is the 120 frames per second. Now, in terms of the menu system, they're very similar. For Canon, you scroll across the top of the screen with your menu selections scrolling down. And for Fuji, you're scrolling down and across and then up and down. For me, I'm just more used to Canon, so it was much easier for me to navigate. But if you're used to Fuji, then you're going to prefer Fuji. Now, you're probably sitting there going, whatever, just get on with the photography side of it. And I went out and I did a full day of photography, and I did some low light, I did a little bit of macro, I did some landscape, and my experience differed, but I think overall the image quality was slightly better on the Canon. Before you yell at me, before you scream at me, just let me explain to you. The Canon has a viewfinder, and as a photographer, I like to hold the Canon up, I like to take a photo through the viewfinder, I like composing my shots like this. And I also use the flippy screen an awful lot, but I didn't realize how much I missed the viewfinder until I didn't have one. Now, when it comes to flippy screens, the Fujifilm is definitely better. It's 3.5 inch instead of 3, and for pixels, it's got like 2,300 and something dots. Kudos to Fuji for that, they killed it. Now, in terms of these still images, all these photos were taken in full manual mode. No auto whatsoever, and I tried to match the settings completely on both cameras. The only times I couldn't is with Fuji's ISO would bottom out at 200 for photography and 400 for video when shooting in manual mode. So I did struggle there to match it up, but that's the limitation of the camera, so that's the results that we're going to see. And I definitely think in the pond here taking pictures, I was getting less reflection through the lens for the Canon, and that comes down to being able to lower my ISO down to 100 instead of being stuck at 200. There's definitely more punch in the Canon colors. There's more contrast as well. Again, these were all taken in the same settings. I didn't favor Canon. They were all taken in manual, and I matched the settings setting for setting. And I just think the Canon had more contrast, a little bit more saturation in the colors as well, straight out of the camera. Now, yes, you can shoot RAW in both of these, and you can go to town on your editing, but this is not. This is shooting in manual mode, straight to JPEG, straight to your screen. So there's no editing going on, it's just straight out of camera. They seem to have more punch in their colors. There seemed to be less glare, and I don't know why that would be the case, but there was less glare with the Canon colors, maybe because the ISO could go a little bit lower. The autofocus appeared better, so I didn't have to struggle to get the shot. Like, there was a couple of landscapes where I was focusing on infinity, and I could not focus on infinity on the Fujifilm. It just kept grabbing things that were closer. Really was a struggle. Now, the Fujifilm definitely appeared to kick more light in, especially in the shaded areas, but again, that's because the ISO had to be slightly higher. So I did get that struggle. But I think these are fairly even set of images. They're not drastically different, and I think you'd be happy with most of them. And I think if you put the Fuji on auto mode and you're a full beginner and you're just snapping away in auto mode, you'll probably lean towards the Fujifilm X-A7 pictures over the Canon. But once you start to learn a bit about photography and put in a bit more effort into your images, for me, the M50 just offered a little bit more. Now the Fuji is definitely rated as a longer battery life, but for me, I was getting more battery out of the Canon, and that's when I was using both video and photo during the day. The Canon was doing better than the Fuji, and the Fuji's rated to 400 and something shots, and the Canon 220. So something not right there. Maybe the screen brightness, but I had both the brightness on the flippy screens. The brightness was turned up on both of them. Now, as we're looking through some of these images, I just want to go through some of the specs here on the two cameras. So you can see that there is not much of a difference. So you've both got fully articulated display, 3.5 and 3 inch, bigger screen on the Fuji. They're both touch screens. They're both maximum shutter speed is 1/4000th of a second. They both have shutter priority, aperture priority, manual exposure, custom white balance. They both have flash built in, so you can take advantage of that if you have to. Not recommended, but if you have to. Canon 10 frames per second, Fuji 6 frames per second. Canon's a winner there. Fuji is definitely the winner in 4K video because the autofocus is better and the lack of crop. I mean, that crop in that Canon, it's so bad. Both can do time lapse. I mean, they're pretty good for the entry-level cameras that they are. So some key areas for the Fuji in terms of being a winner, it would be more autofocus points, 3.5 inch display over 3 inch display, lighter and apparently a bigger battery life. May not be so in my real world tests. And then for the Canon, you've got a viewfinder, which is huge. You've got twice the amount of ISO on the high end, and on the low end, you can get down to ISO 100. Continuous shooting, 10 frames per second. NFC is a big win, and enhanced digital image stabilization. You can connect wirelessly to both cameras via your smartphone. There's no real clear winner there. It's just a good function to have these days with everyone being so mobile and so socially active on the Instagrams and the Snapchats and all that sort of shit. They're both 24 megapixel sensors. Now they both have microphone ports. However, you can just plug a standard microphone into your Canon M50, no problem. If you want to plug in a Rode microphone into the Fuji X-A7, you need an adapter because it doesn't take your standard 3.5mm headphone jack, only 2.5mm. Bum bum. That's poor, but it is what it is. So the 2-year-old Canon M50 doesn't stack up against a more modern Fujifilm X-A7, and I'm gonna have to say to you guys that it definitely still holds up when you're in this price range. So where do I sit? Well, I think for video, if you want to be more creative and have more options, the Canon M50 is probably the best option. It's just got a better image, looks so much better. It's got that little bit of stabilization for if you're vlogging. Not a lot, but more than what the Fujifilm has. 1080p, that autofocus is king of the country. It is superior. You have quite a lot of options as well if you do want to get into the creative side of HDR and HDR Plus and many, many different options. But not quite as many and not quite as creative as the Fujifilm X-A7. So the X-A7 has its own target audience and its own people, and that target audience will enjoy it for what it is. For creativity, it's up there. You can see what you're doing on the screen. You have many different options in terms of choosing the type of video you want to film or photo you want to take. The Canon M50 is your mini little workhorse. It was referred to as the baby Canon 80D, and it was actually said, some people said it was better than the 80D. What do you think? Comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. I really appreciate you watching my video, and I will catch you in the next one. Check it!